Hi, this is the Michael Scraggs Show, Cannabis and Community. With me tonight is a good friend of mine. Have you ever met somebody that you just like their name? Their name is really cool. Tonight, I brought on J. David Nix, attorney at law, friend of mine. To my left, David.
Good evening.
Thank you very much. I appreciate your presence here tonight.
Yes.
People are more honored than they know to have you here. So you're an attorney?
I am. I've been an attorney for 23 years.
For 23 years? 23
years. Lots of experience, particularly in seeing the evolution of cannabis laws.
So where's your main practice at this point?
Where located physically?
Yeah.
San Francisco, California.
San Francisco.
Yeah.
Isn't that like the hub? Is that the hub?
It's where the ideas are created, and
Peyton Ashbury.
Yes, and then the economics of Southern California usually develop them.
Right on. Well, tell me a little bit about it.
Well, I think we're living in some interesting times. A lot of my legal work, not all of it, but a lot of it centers around the administration of various marijuana laws relating to medical marijuana and how that's affected by federal law, both criminal and financial laws. And I've seen and witnessed a great evolution of this subject from the days when there was no defense to now when we see various states have enacted laws allowing it to occur. How
many states would you say are legal at this point? 26?
Last time I counted, there was, I believe, I wasn't prepared for the question, but I think there's 17.
17?
17, yes.
I'm gonna check that. I think there's at least 25.
I think that the...
or is it 25 that have cannabis clubs?
I was going to say that the definition of legal may change from state to state, so that's
right
what we're talking about. Alaska, Colorado are the only ones that, and Oregon and Washington are the only ones that have no
right
prohibition.
On. You're correct. The ones that are like legal, right?
Correct.
But they're in about 25 states. Right on. So I'm just the layman, ladies and gentlemen. J. David Nix is the attorney. So.
And that's what I see as one of the most fascinating things going on in the law right now.
Major history right now.
And it's almost like a confluence of all the subjects that a lawyer can practice. I started practicing complex criminal defense, but this has evolved into a need to know about zoning laws, banking laws, contract laws, landlord-tenant laws, and it really requires, and so because there's so much of the different arrows that a lawyer has that have to be used, it's very interesting.
So you're an attorney of all trades?
I am. I do other aspects of the law that I don't have a whole lot of fanfare over, but pretty much a general litigator, I guess.
So is the cannabis law a passion? Do you enjoy doing that? Is it interesting to you? Because we're actually making history today. Ladies and gentlemen, most of you don't realize that you're in a very important time in history because of the cannabis revolution, whether it be medical or whether it be recreational. Is that not right?
It's true. I think we're going to end prohibition of marijuana. Whatever arguments are for keeping prohibition.
Is that like Eliot Ness and prohibition? Is that would go the same?
Prohibition basically making it illegal. Whatever arguments there are for keeping it that way certainly aren't worth it. And so...
Well, the war on drugs, hasn't it failed since the very beginning?
I think a lot of activists, lawyers, and citizens see the war on drugs and the war on marijuana as two different things. And while you may be correct in the statement you made, it has seemed that much more rational.
Well, I think it's becoming more rational, but at the same time, in the business that you're in especially, and the business that I am in, you see, I don't want to use the word hater, but you see a lot of people that are uneducated that you would think they would realize. And with my customer base would be 37 to 84, the majority. So I'm amazed that the same demographic of people that I work with is the same demographic of people that don't understand it, and it's kind of like voodoo. You know what I'm saying? It's so I'm amazed at that aspect.
You know, my microcosm analysis of government in California is that the more uneducated people about cannabis reside there.
In California?
Let me restate what I said to make sure you understand. The majority of the people that don't understand cannabis work in government.
I would agree with that.
And that's been my experience in California. I don't know if that's true in other places, but that's where the majority of the uneducated individuals are.
You know, I must agree with you on that, because periodically I do a little bit of politics, a little quasi-politics. I'm involved in Sacramento and Nevada and the Solano County aspect of it. And it's like there's a book that they all have called Non-Understanding, and they keep that by their bedside, and they pull that out and read that book so they can stay in a non-understanding situation.
I think the illegal nature of it has caused them to be ignorant for years.
Yeah.
Things are fast changing.
Do you think the illegal nature of it is really just the money that was involved when they made? Because actually the federal government had a cannabis program for medical patients a number of years ago that one of the Bushes got rid of. So the federal government was actually in the cannabis business, ladies and gentlemen, at one certain point in time, for sure.
They were, and you know, I can say this. I had a client many years ago who was responsible for putting Proposition 215, which probably sparked a lot of the legalization efforts throughout the country.
It was a big deal.
And Dennis Perrone told me one time when I asked him, I said, Dennis, why is marijuana illegal? And his response was, it makes you too liberal. And I think it's more of an ideological opposition to it than whatever fostered harms supposedly come from it. And the more it's accepted by more people in society, as it has been in the last 10 years, the more we're going to see an erosion of that kind of an attitude.
Yeah, and I think that's a good thing. Now let me ask you this question, and I know that you know the answer to this question. Do you think the more that the local governments and politicians touch the situation to put a feather in their personal career, that it erodes the development and the progress? Because everybody that touches it, ladies and gentlemen, has a method to their madness to either put a feather in their cap or put money in their pocket somewhere or another.
Well, I think as state law develops and makes the acquisition of taxation on marijuana easier and easier, that you will see that attitude change as well.
Well, let's hope so. But let's look at that for a second. Ladies and gentlemen, if I'm not mistaken, Vallejo, emerging from bankruptcy, Vallejo, by the way, charges 10% every 30 days. And then San Jose followed that. They're now 10%, to where San Francisco and Sacramento, I know Sacramento is 4%. Why do you think that is? Because the more broker you are, the more money you want?
There's a myriad of reasons for it. It could also be reflective of their attitude that it's not truly medicine, because it's the only medical provided substance, at least by way the law defines it in California, that is taxed.
Yeah.
And so...
Well, it's also a nonprofit with no write-offs. That's tough to do.
Yeah, it is. I mean, I think that municipalities are going to try to get their money any way they can, and this is one way that they all feel that it's easy. Why? Because they don't have an understanding of how it works.
Yeah, and everybody wants to touch it and get their 10 cents. At the same time, they don't realize they're ruining what it started out to be was medical cannabis for people. And ladies and gentlemen, on the last show, Larry was on here, and he was in remission. And I'm happy to say he is out of remission and he is totally clear, but his maintenance program is a year. So before I forget, because you brought that up, it's a wonderful thing.
You know, that's one aspect of marijuana is that, you know, at least by the anecdotal evidence, it's almost miraculous in the cures that it provides.
And the word that you used, marijuana, a lot of people think that you have to smoke it. Still today, the cancer patient that had 4 to 8 months to live, about a year later is now not just out of remission, but clear, never smoked a joint in his life.
Probably using oils, I would.
He was using the juicing program that we provide that's totally free, RSO, a tincture, and minor edibles. And he simultaneously was on our program along with chemo. And we actually caught him in time to where it made a difference in him. Of course, everybody's system in there is different.
You know, Mike, more fundamental than that is marijuana is a very benign substance. There's no recorded deaths or overdose.
Did you hear that? No recorded deaths or overdoses.
That have ever been an overdose that resulted in a death is really what I meant to say. And whatever social problems come from it, it's not worth having an entire criminal justice system to deal with it. In this day and age, it seems absurd. And so prohibition just has to come to an end.
It's a soapbox to stand on, maybe?
Whatever it is, you know, it's the biggest drain of resource that I could think of on local government, just making marijuana illegal and enforcing laws to keep it that way.
Spending taxpayers' money that they don't have.
So while the medical aspects of it are great, I think we need to move to a day in society where it's a substance that people use. They use, you know, in a manner that's safe and responsible, and that there's laws to deal with when you don't, and not laws that incarcerate you. And so that's more that I wanted to point out is, you know, we're in an age where it's not just exposing the medical miraculous nature of marijuana to certain diseases, but that it's too benign to really make it part of the criminal justice system and have an entire apparatus of law enforcement, judges, courts to deal with that.
Well, at this point, I think we're going to take a break for a second.
Okay.
And get a refreshment, and we'll be back, ladies and gentlemen, in a couple of minutes. Thank you very much. The Michael Scraggs Show at gmail.com is the mailbox. We're looking forward to your emails. We'll answer them on the next show, or we will email you back an answer. Please send us some mail. Thank you very much. Welcome back, Michael Scraggs Show on Cannabis and Community. Before we get back to Mr. J. David Nix, I want to thank Carol Tyler at CCC for feeding 200 people every Sunday. And all you have to be, ladies and gentlemen, is hungry. She's been doing it for several years here, and I want to thank her very much. She couldn't be here tonight, but I want to give her a shout out and thank her very much, and I'm sure the people that she feeds every Sunday love her to death. J. David Nix.
Yes.
Famous guy.
Not that famous.
Oh, come on. You're so modest.
I'm not famous at all.
You're famous to me.
Yes.
And this is my show. And
to all the people that I've helped.
That's, well, obviously to them.
Yes.
Let's talk about legalization. What do you think about that?
Well, you know, I think for many decades we've said all the ideas take place in California and then spread, and I think that the country's really waiting to see what happens in California come 2016.
Well, now, as you said in the last segment, there are a couple of states that are already legal. Why is California the trendsetter?
Well, the economic power of the 4 states that have full legalization, Colorado, Oregon, Washington, and Alaska. I don't even think they fit into the corner of Los Angeles County. And so you're talking about a vast, larger population that creates such a demand for the product that, for lack of a better term, it will open up the gates of commerce.
Now, this is my personal opinion. I agree with you about California in the direction, and people are looking at California, but I wanted to see what you thought about that. I think, personally, that Colorado is kind of a cluster because of the issues that they've had. I'm not saying there's not any good in what they're doing, but I think that California is going to do it better.
I agree with that as well. I think, they've been doing it longer than Colorado, at least in the medical marijuana realm. And they're more organized, and there's just more economic power here.
Do you think that California and other states should be by the people, for the people, or from the government to rich people?
Well, of course, I don't agree with from the government to the rich people.
Well,
we are a democratic. We are a democratic republic.
Really?
And at least that's who we should look to represent. Which, if we do that, the majority of the population now has gotten to the point where they want marijuana decriminalized, and more than decriminalized, basically not prohibited,
right,
and restricted.
I think, now, I really asked you about legalization, but I want to make another statement, and then I want to get into more legalization, do you think that the more rules and regulations and the further they pull the covers back, that they're going to create a black market of what they're trying to get away from to begin with?
There's always going to be that opportunity, but if you think about it, in the alcohol industry, it's so developed, if you look at it that way, if you could, that anybody doing black market liquor is just not going to get very far because there's such an abundance of availability.
No, and that's very true. And they monitor, ladies and gentlemen, we all know that they monitor alcohol to the nth, so to speak.
They do.
But with cannabis, the more other people put their hands on it, and the more people touch it, the more expensive it's going to get. And because it's brand new, so to speak, it'll be really easy.
I agree.
For a regular person to stand on a street corner and put the pimp on it. Right?
That's what I had said. If you look at the alcohol industry now, that it's taken so many decades to develop to this point.
I don't always wear a suit. I had to put the street terminology on that, right?
And yes, you did. But I don't think it was that way if you watched an episode of Boardwalk Empire.
Well, Nucky Thompson. But you know what happened to Nucky in the end, right?
I didn't see the episode.
He got knocked out.
He got knocked out. So that would figure.
Well,
just to make the point again clear is, if the proper avenues of supply were available for all those that are demanding it, all of them were filled, there would be no ability for a black market person to prosper because the availability is so much. But we don't have that. We have actually artificial black markets created by too restrictive of governmental regulations, including even in places like Colorado.
Yeah. I agree. I agree with that. I mean, I don't always like it, but I enjoy the history making that's taken place. But the history, ladies and gentlemen, that I'm not going to enjoy is if Walmart gets involved in it. Won't that be ridiculous?
That would be upsetting because it would take the individuality of cannabis.
Well, they had an ad out They had an ad out. It was
Well,
really
I've actually heard
horrifying.
that, Walgreens, their original founder, Joseph Walgreens Sr., made a large fortune during Prohibition by being one of the few medical alcohol providers in Chicago.
Right, but that was.
And
I don't think I was born, or you were born.
no,
then,
neither
right?
was I.
So
I don't even think my grandfather was born. But here's the point. With that kind of history, I know that Walgreens is studying on packaging for cannabis right now.
Walgreens is the #1 retailer in the world. Cannabis is the #1 money. Who doesn't? Who doesn't want to get involved, right? But to me, it's by the people, for the people. But in reality, there's nothing the little guy can't make, the big guy can't take. Let me say that one more time. They can take it because they got money, politics, power, and lobbyists. Where the little guy falls by the wayside like he has throughout history. Now let's talk about legalization. I'll get off on a tangent here.
It's a subject that we could discuss for hours.
So you're going to come back on my show.
Of course.
Thank you very much.
Yes.
He's got a commitment.
On camera.
So legalization, let's get in depth a little bit on that
Yeah.
and the ramifications of that.
Well, you need economic forces of the market to be liberated to create changes in law. And what I mean by that is, go back to my point, California finally legalizes, if they do in 2016. The market forces there, I think, will have an effect even on federal law.
Let's hope so.
And the federal government appears to currently be experimenting with how that would work.
In way?
And the way they're doing it is Congress literally defunded the enforcement of marijuana laws in states where individuals are operating under the state laws that allow them to do
And
what
good
they're doing.
players.
And good players.
Right on.
And so the federal government has almost gotten out of the business of marijuana prosecution, except in very rare circumstances that normally don't involve medical cannabis.
Do you think some of the local municipalities are still overzealous on thinking reefer madness?
It appears that they are part of a well-intended group that are misinformed, and they have to rely on their big brother to get their proper information. Their big brother is meaning law enforcement.
Is that called self-righteousness?
It's called kind of talking to the fox about how to lock somebody out of the hen house. And it just, I think what I'm saying is, they've benefited financially from marijuana prohibition for so long, and they continue to do so, and it threatens their financial existence that you can't rely on what law enforcement has to say about cannabis. It seems like they're the only organized group in California that opposes cannabis and the development of it. And so when you're getting advice from a group like that and you don't have any knowledge yourself and you really don't have any other choice but to take their advice.
Is that called patting stupidity on the back?
Patting stupidity on the back is a pretty great term for it. You know that, Mike? It really is. And as stupidity pats itself on the back, you create these restrictive rules that create even more nuisance problems and black markets and all these other things that we know come from the fact that you can't stop a population from obtaining something that they want. And so,
Well, in the demographic that I'm in, we have the cliche packages. We have a Lucky 13. That's 3.5 grams of medical cannabis for $13 with tax out the door. We have a Dub, which is 20, Poor Boy, which is 20, a Working Man, which is 25. So the reason I brought that up is with everybody touching it, the government, the California, the local municipalities, do you think stuff like that will disappear so that the common man can't get medicine reasonably? That's just an opinion.
Not anytime in the immediate future of the end of Prohibition, because I think that creates a vacuum of regulations and experimentation and a lot of fear and reefer madness even after, even if hypothetically it were to be legalized in California. And so while you still have that, you're still going to have forces that deprive the population of a particular area the ability to freely get a substance.
No.
What does that do? That creates, again, black market, nuisances, all these other problems, including taking out who? The common man.
Yeah, not good.
Not good.
Not good at all.
So,
what do you think about the banking system? Wouldn't it be easier to keep track of it if they just took the money?
it'd be great, but we have, there's federal money laundering laws that still are on the books.
Yeah.
And it's pretty difficult to convince a bank with the...
If you deposit money in the bank, how's that laundering money?
Well, under federal money laundering laws, if you deposit a certain number of transactions over a certain amount of money, and the proceeds came from a Schedule I substance, which marijuana is, it's technically considered money laundering.
Yeah, but if they're not going to bother it or bother the clubs, why do that? But
yeah, the problem are the banks.
The problem
are
the banks.
The banks. And
right.
the reason why, for some with good reason, is that the banks aren't the government, so they can't guarantee themselves that the federal government will, under a different administration, have a change of heart.
Key word, different administration. Ladies and gentlemen, we're going to come to a close. I would love to have J. David Nix back on the show soon. And we're going to be traveling, I believe. San Francisco, Sacramento, Nevada. Maybe we can make you the resident attorney. Would you like, can you, what?
I travel a lot as part of my work, so sure.
I love it. J. David Nix,
All right.
ladies and gentlemen.
Thank you.
Thank you so very much.
All right.
You like my tie?
I do.
Like that tie?
I like the microphone
do.
on Mike better. Mike on the microphone.
Good night, everybody. Thank you very much. Thank you, Bert. Thank you, Bert, the producer, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you so very much, ladies and gentlemen. Good night.